Hey guys, welcome to Initiate Scientia, where science meets you. If you're new to this channel, then do press the subscribe button and also press the bell icon. This is the Java series. Exception handling. Exception. Exception is an unexpected event or error that occurs during the execution of a program, disrupting the normal flow. Reasons why exception occurs: invalid user input, device failure, loss of network connection, code errors, null references, database errors, type mismatch, out of bound, and so on. Errors and exceptions are different. Errors are serious issues related to the environment in which the application is running. They are not usually handled in Java. Exceptions are issues that can potentially be recovered from, like find not found exception or a null pointer exception. Now let's see the types of exceptions. Types of exceptions. Throwable. Throwable has exceptions and error. Exceptions has two types, that is built-in and user-defined exceptions. Now, in built in exceptions, you have checked and unchecked exceptions. Checked exceptions are class not found exception, interrupted exception, IO exception, instantiation exception, SQL exception, file not found exception, and these occur at the compile time. Unchecked exceptions. These are arithmetic exceptions, class cast exceptions, null pointer exceptions, array index out of bound exception, array store exception, illegal thread state exception. Unchecked exceptions are at the runtime. Checked exceptions are at the compile time. Now, error. We have virtual machine error, assertion error, and so on. Next, let's see the built in exception. Exceptions that are available in the Java libraries. Checked exceptions. These are at the compile time exceptions because they are checked at the compile time by the compiler. They are typically external issues. Next is unchecked exceptions. Compiler will not check these exceptions at the compile time. Results from programming errors. So they do not require explicit handling. User defined exception. In situations where built in exceptions cannot handle the scenario, user defined exceptions are required. Exception handling in Java. It is a mechanism to handle runtime errors so that normal flow of application can be maintained. It is one of the powerful mechanism. Java exception keywords: try, catch, finally, throw, throws. Try. To specify a block where we should place an exception code so that it would throw error. Try block must be followed by either catch or finally. Catch. A block that catches and handles an exception. Finally, a block that executes regardless of whether an exception was caught or not, typically used to release resources. Throw. Used to explicitly throw an exception. Throws. Declares the exceptions that a method can throw. Basic syntax of exception handling: try, catch, and finally. Try. Code that might throw an exception is in the try block. Catch. Exception type 1 E1. The code to handle exception of type exception type 1. Next, we have another catch block: code to handle exception of type exception type 2. And finally, this block has the code that executes whether or not an exception is thrown. Chained exceptions. Java allows chaining exceptions by associating one exception with another, providing additional context to an exception. Example: try, code that causes an exception; catch, IO exception E; throw, new custom exception, custom error message with the exception E. This is for exception handling. Use specific exception types. Catch specific exceptions instead of general ones like exception or throwable unless absolutely necessary. Avoid empty catch blocks. Always provide meaningful handling in catch blocks to avoid silently swallowing exceptions. Clean up the resources in finally block. Ensure resources like file handlers or database connections are closed in the finally block. Log exceptions. Use logging frameworks to log exceptions for debugging and monitoring. Don't use exceptions for control flow. Exceptions are costly and should not replace regular conditional checks. Common exception types in Java. Arithmetic exception. Throw when an illegal arithmetic operation occurs. Example, division by 0. Null pointer exception. Throw when an application attempts to use null in a case where an object is required. Array index out of bound exception. Thrown when accessing an array with an illegal index. Class cast exception. Throws when an object is cast to a subclass that it does not belong to. IO exception. Thrown when an in operator fails or is interrupted. File not found exception. A specific type of IO exception thrown when a file cannot be found. SQL exception thrown for SQL database access errors. More detailed written videos are coming in the Java series, upright from the next video, similar to the data structures playlist. So keep watching.